I do know business.
Yes,
and
so 145% tariffs on China, and that is
That's good.
basically
That's
an
good.
embargo.
They deserve it.
It'll raise prices on
They
everything
deserve
from
it.
electronics to clothing to building houses.
You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China's going to...
Donald Trump was thrown a curveball during an interview that left him completely rattled. His signature comb-over nearly called 911 as his face went from calm confidence to total panic. His expression was like an emotional loading screen, just stuck, buffering. So what was the question? Why did he suddenly look like he'd forgotten how to speak? And who had the guts to ask it? Buckle up, because this wasn't your average gotcha moment. This was a full-on collision with reality. You seriously won't believe what happened next. But hey, before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. You're going to want to be along for this wild ride. Trump walked into the interview expecting a smooth, flattering conversation, something soft, safe, and scripted. He probably thought it would be full of compliments about his incredible accomplishments, made-up poll numbers, and maybe even a few lazy golf metaphors to close it out. But instead of a fluff piece, he got ambushed by something rare and nearly extinct these days, a real journalist. He looked like he was headed to a Mar-a-Lago brunch, expecting soft chairs, soft lighting, and even softer questions. The set screamed polished network TV vibes, perfect for a little PR shine. But someone forgot to tell Terry Moran, the interviewer, to stick to the script. He came ready to work, not to worship. This wasn't campaign karaoke. This was journalism with teeth. Terry wasn't there to cozy up. He was there with notes, facts, and the nerve to actually listen. Trump, who's been babied for years by outlets like Fox News, Newsmax, and Owen, wasn't ready for this. Those places treat him like royalty, where the toughest question might be, how do you stay so strong while being so unfairly treated? So imagine the shock when Terry showed up with actual questions. Terry didn't yell. He didn't interrupt. He just asked things. Simple, grounded questions. But in Trump's world, that's basically a slap with a velvet glove, followed by a dual challenge. From the start, it was clear this wasn't going to be a pillow soft session. This was a reckoning. You could practically hear the gears grinding in Trump's head as he realized the vibe was way off. This wasn't Newsmax. No reassuring graphics. No banners calling him the real president. No panel of cheerleaders nodding on cue. It was just him, a camera, and a journalist doing his job. Remember the time Chris Wallace schooled him with a graph? Or when Jonathan Swan dismantled him with facts like he was speedrunning a truth game? You'd think Trump might have learned, but no. He always believes the next interview will be different. Maybe he thinks if he says tremendous enough times, the journalist will swoon and forget the question. But this time, no chance of that. Terry Moran came to peel back the curtain, and what unfolded was a polite but brutal unraveling of Trump's half-truths, deflections, and scrambled monologues. Trump came to campaign, but Terry came to report. The result? An unraveling mess that felt like watching someone try to catch a smoke with bare hands. And America? Oh, we heard it loud and clear. The laughter wasn't in the room, but it echoed across the internet. The question that broke Trump's brain wasn't even harsh. It was soft, almost casual, like a napkin soaked in truth. But to someone allergic to facts, it may as well have been a bomb. He was mid-rant, ready to go off script about something completely unrelated, when suddenly, boom, reality walked in and sat on his lap. The moment Terry mentioned something called evidence, Trump looked like someone had asked him to juggle chainsaws while reciting the Constitution backward. First came the blinking, rapid, confused blinking. Not a metaphor, real blinking, like his brain was buffering for an answer. Then came the lean back, that squinty signature scowl. And finally, his classic move, fog machine mode. When in doubt, drown the question in a pile of rambling words. But here's the kicker. The question didn't leave. It stayed. It waited. It stared into his soul. And Trump, he unraveled in real time. His response was a jumble of unrelated thoughts, bizarre self-brags, and sudden left turns into topics no one brought up. It was like hitting shuffle on a malfunctioning speech generator. Pure chaos. Yet somehow in Trump's world, it probably felt like just another Tuesday, because nothing screams I'm innocent like frantic verbal jazz hands. To understand why this moment hit like a reality check in a room full of delusion, let's set the stage. Trump interviews aren't usually about journalism. They're ego inflations disguised as Q&A. One camera, one flattering angle, and one pre-screened sycophant tossing questions like, "Sir, how did you become so incredibly brilliant at everything?" It's like watching a man interview his own reflection. But not this time. This interviewer had a spine and possibly a subscription to actual news. They asked about January 6th. Yes, that minor event where democracy went on a smoke break. They asked about his economic plans, which seemed to be scribbled in invisible ink on a Mar-a-Lago napkin. They poked at his relationships with foreign leaders, and just like that, his face turned into the human version of a buffering wheel. This wasn't just a stumble, it was a full-blown pratfall into the pool of public scrutiny. One of those moments so awkward it makes you question every decision that led to sitting in that chair. He looked like someone whose teleprompter froze mid-rally and suddenly had to think. And let's be honest, thinking has never been his strong suit. Golf? Yes. Tweeting conspiracy theories at 3 a.m.? Absolutely. But coherent thought? That's for nerds. Naturally, after the interview aired, the internet did what it does best. Absolutely lost its collective mind. Memes multiplied faster than Trump's legal fees.
We were losing $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion a year. Not sustainable. They were taking advantage of us like they've never. I could have left it that way, and at some point there would have been an implosion like nobody's ever seen. But I said, no, we have to fix it. I've wanted to do this for many years. You know, I had the best economy.
Within hours, his team activated the usual emergency PR playbook. Declare the interviewer disrespectful, the question unfair, and the entire thing a deep state ambush orchestrated by people who read books. There was even a Truth Social post suggesting he was caught off guard because he didn't expect to be treated that way. Translation? Someone asked me a real question and I panicked. The irony here is delicious. One calm, factual question from a journalist and the toughest guy on the planet crumbles faster than a soggy McDonald's wrapper. Somebody get this man a crisis manager for interviews. And the timing couldn't have been worse. His campaign has been frantically trying to rebrand, buffing the chaos of the past 4 years into a misunderstood stroke of genius. But this interview, it was like spraying Febreze on a dumpster fire. Instead of masking the smell, it just made everything worse. Let's talk about that interviewer. Whoever they are, they deserve a Pulitzer or at least a Netflix special. This wasn't a gotcha ambush. It was calm, surgical, and most importantly, based on facts. Trump tried to pivot repeatedly. Each deflection was a masterclass in avoidance. Asked a question? Let's talk about crowd sizes. Job numbers, sure, but only the version where they balloon in every retelling. And of course, the vague, people are saying maneuver, Trump's go-to move for delivering made-up statements without taking any responsibility for them. Spoiler alert, it was nonsense. But this isn't new behavior. Trump's history is a scrapbook of these moments. The time he suggested nuking hurricanes, the time he mixed up the Revolutionary War with airports, that infamous bleach comment that made every scientist do a spit take, or when he said he knew the Constitution better than anyone, then forgot entire amendments during the same speech. It's the kind of resume that makes The Onion consider early retirement. But this moment landed differently. Maybe because more people are finally paying attention. Maybe because voters are realizing that yelling fake news isn't the same as answering a question. Or maybe, just maybe, it's because watching Trump get publicly pinned by facts is the kind of national therapy session America didn't know it needed. Even SNL couldn't resist jumping in, bringing back their Trump character just to reenact the blinking sequence in slow motion. Blink, blink, pause, word salad. And the internet, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Reaction videos came faster than a grand jury indictment because nothing says strong leader like folding under polite journalism. The illusion of being the alpha male doesn't really hold when you're glitching on basic governance questions. You know it's bad when the defense becomes, well, he was tired. Tired? From what? Yelling for 2 hours straight about how unfair life is? Trump isn't tired. He's exhausted from dodging facts while carrying the weight of 1,000 imaginary achievements. And let's be real, this was bound to happen. You can only live inside a yes-man echo chamber for so long before the real world kicks the door down. He spent years in a loop where the loudest voice is his own, where disagreement equals betrayal, where facts are optional and loyalty is currency. But when that bubble bursts, when someone dares ask a real question with real facts, the crash landing is spectacular. Because in Trump's world, the scariest thing isn't a subpoena. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. What now? Will it change anything? Probably not for the MAGA diehards. You could air a Meltdown live and they'd call it strategic patience. But for everyone else, it was a reality check wrapped in awkward pauses and blinking fits. What we saw wasn't just a man dodging questions, it was the unraveling of a persona. Strip away the gold branding.
He said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
Well,
over
wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry. Terry.
He did not have the
Don't do that.
letter MS13.
It says MS13.
Yeah, that was Photoshopped.
The all caps tweets in the carnival bark, and what you've got is someone derailed by basic questions, not even tough ones. Just, hey, do you understand how government works? Questions. And what that interview exposed wasn't just his inability to answer, it spotlighted his entire political blueprint in real time. The formula: deflect, distract, deny, and when that fails, glaze over and wait for the storm to pass. But this time, it didn't. And let's be honest, if one journalist can rattle him this badly, imagine a prosecutor under oath. The second his eyes glazed over like a Krispy Kreme under a heat lamp, psychologists everywhere leaned in, because Trump's communication has always been a mix of dominance, deflection, and projection. It's not dialogue.
We were losing $3 to $5 billion a day on trade. We were losing $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion a year. Not sustainable.
It's a WWE promo where truth gets suplexed and logic takes a steel chair to the face. He doesn't answer questions. He attacks their existence. Context, fake news wrapped in grammar, and when the usual tricks, word salads, hyperbole, and the classic "sir" stories fail, the system malfunctions. You're left watching a man short-circuiting on live TV like an animatronic duck trying to fake competence. You can practically hear the dial-up tone behind his eyes as he searches for an exit. Experts call it what it is: psychological defense. When reality gets too real, the bravado breaks down. All that's left is the blank stare, the pivot to Hillary's emails, or somehow light bulbs. Enter Terry Moran, the accidental national hero, the guy who committed the ultimate act of journalism. He asked a follow-up question. In a media landscape where many tiptoe to avoid becoming Trump's next insult, Moran walked straight into the MAGA lion's den, armed with a clipboard and a backbone. Turns out, just doing your job now qualifies as revolutionary bravery, especially when the dragon breathes lawsuits instead of fire and screams fake news like it's punctuation. But beyond the memes and Twitter threads, this wasn't just clickbait. It was a stress test for the illusion of control. Because if Trump can't handle light journalistic pushback without glitching, how's he supposed to crush inflation, secure borders, or broker peace during halftime at Bedminster? Spoiler, he's not. It's a bad sign when one composed journalist with a pen and pulse can reduce a supposed strongman to blinking like a busted LED. Because if Terry Moran can do that with calm questions and the energy of a mildly disappointed teacher, imagine the pressure of real stakes. Picture it: a federal prosecutor, a subpoena with teeth, or, brace yourself, a jury that doesn't accept witch hunt as a legal defense. Suddenly, the man who claims "I alone can fix it" looks like someone who can't even handle being questioned, on camera no less. So here's the call. If one journalist with a question can shake the myth, imagine what millions of us armed with facts, votes, and voices can do. Don't just watch the unraveling, be part of the reckoning.